Welcome to another episode of that Worship Guitar Show, brought to you by worshipguitarskills.com with me, Shah and the WGS team. You'll discover how to go from a frustrated to fluent worship guitarist without having to practice for hours on end or even spend thousands of dollars on new gear. We'll help you unleash your true potential so you can make the most of the gifts and talents you've been entrusted with, and finally grow into the amazing worship guitar player you've been destined to become. Welcome, and let's get started. Hey, welcome guys. Great to be with you on this Thursday, the 14th of March. We are trying streaming on Instagram as well today, so if you are joining us on Instagram, let us know. We are testing out some tech, so it'll be great to see who's watching live from Instagram. And then currently, let's go over here. We've got Darren tuning in from North Carolina. Hey Darren, great to see you. Awesome to have you back. Darren is a return viewer here. We've got Kenan tuning in from a few doors down together with Jacobus. Kenan and Jacobus, they work with us here at WGS, Worship Guitar Skills, and they make sure that all the tech and the video edits and all of basically everything to do with all the music side runs nice and smooth. So big shout out to them. If you are watching on Instagram, obviously it's cropping the video here, so we'll have to double check if you can see much on the guitar side, but hopefully you can see enough there. We're going to have to see how we go about with the different aspect ratios and whatnot. But if you want the full experience, we are live on YouTube right now, and if you're watching this after the fact, the replays remain up on YouTube as well, so you'd be able to catch those at any time. So today we're talking about ambient sounds and doing some kind of ambient fun stuff on the guitar. And what I'm going to be talking about here specifically is the tone, and that's obviously a big part of getting a nice ambient sound going. And then secondly, we are also going to be looking at doing the different kinds of techniques that you'd be able to play and use as it relates to the technique and also the voicing. So a few weeks back, we launched a video on YouTube where I played something like this. Let's see if I zoom in on the second cam, what that's going to look like on Instagram. So we played these open voicings. Those kind of open sounds, and you can of course use them with dirty tones as well. So if I've got a really dirty sound, lots of drive. Those are basically open triads. I'm going to show you where those come in from as well. And that's basically what we're going to be focusing on in this week's video. So we've got Norman tuning in from Uganda. Hey Norman, great to see you all the way from Uganda. We've got Woody Jean tuning in from J-Bay, ready to listen. Awesome, welcome to have another local join us for the stream here. And we've got Larry Simonis saying good morning, friends. Morning to you as well, Larry. Great to see everyone over here. So let me know if you are familiar with open triads. It's obviously a combination of technique, tone, and voicings when you want to get to playing ambient sounds. Now, a sound like this, it kind of takes the sound of like a pad. If you want to, you can do some tremolo picking, something along the lines of That's really for an effect more than anything else. And if I go to my playback unit here, I can maybe get us a pad going there in the key of A. Let me know if you can hear that. Then with that pad, obviously, it's going to give us like a bit of a background here. So that's going to be in the key of A. And then on the guitar, you can play these full voicings. You can do 2 notes. You can do just 1 note. And of course you can do that with the dirty tone as well. Like I said, you can do the full voicings. You can do that with the 2 notes. You can do it with just 1 note. All of these things for some really nice effects, and there's times in a worship set where you might want to go ahead and experiment with some of these sounds. So why is that? Well, it's nice and simple because you want to create an atmosphere, right? And we know that sound has the power to change the atmosphere. If someone runs into a room screaming at the top of their lungs, it's immediately going to change that atmosphere. Now that's a bad example of how sound can change an atmosphere, but when you are able to dial up some kind of a sweet sounding things on your guitar, that can really bring in a sweet atmosphere to a room. And that's why you want to be able to play ambiently, like I'm kind of demonstrating for you here right now. Just something like that to kind of play some kind of a melodic thing, or if you just do it single notes. So I think you'd agree that when you play things like that, it's very different to just playing your full chord kind of things. And that's obviously great on the guitar when there's a time for that, playing the full chords. But when you play more melodically, get some really sweet sounds on the guitar, and that's what we're going to be talking about today as it relates to some of these melodic playing as it relates to ambient tones. So Darren's saying good stuff to learn and have in my toolkit, and he says I've used swells before, but you've given me some new ideas. I'm glad you mentioned that, because swells is basically one of the first things that you want to kind of have in your bag as it relates to creating some of these ambient tones. And why is that? Well, when I pick a note on the guitar, you have that attack. And the guitar is a percussive instrument in the sense that you strike it and then there's an attack. And if you record the guitar on a DAW, digital audio workstation, whenever you strike the strings or when you pick a note, immediately there's going to be a spike in the transient, because that's where we're going to get that attack of the sound. And that attack immediately calls attention to itself, right? But if I play a swell, whether it's a single note, it almost sounds like, imagine a choir singing soft and gentle oohs and ahs, right? You don't hear an attack, it's just this gentle swell of things happening. Or if I do that with two notes, see, I'm swelling the sound in, I get rid of the attack. So that's one of the things that I really like about playing these open voicings. Now, if I do open triads like this, see, I just get rid of that attack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jam that for us with a bit of a backing over here. And then we can see what that sounds like as it relates to what I can do for like a soft moment to kind of get rid of that attack. Nothing wrong with it. There's other times when you definitely want that attack. It's going to serve a real great purpose. But when you're in a kind of a gentle moment, then sometimes you might want to get rid of that attack and just use these swells. Check this out. Okay, so I'm going to focus on swells. An E, F sharp, A over C sharp. Now I bring in some of those attacks. Maybe get rid of the attacks again. In again A. So the takeaway for what I've just done there is kind of focusing in and around just playing, sometimes using swells and sometimes actually playing. And there's that contrast between sometimes having a note swell in like this and at other times striking it so that you can hear the attack. Having that contrast in your toolkit will help you to be a more dynamic guitar player. So that's really cool. So we've got Larry saying, using swells is a new tech for me, better to work with a pedal or your volume control. That's a great question. So what Larry is saying, and I don't have my floorboard hooked up at the moment, but I can actually play the note, and then with my volume pedal, I can step on it and then I can bring the volume in. That's going to give you hands-free in that regard, right? It's going to give you kind of a hands-free approach like that. But for me, I'll lift the guitar up a little bit here. I start with my pinky and then obviously I bring in the other fingers like that. Let's just see. So that's how I do my volume control. So I'm quite used to doing it. It's like that, right? So I prefer the volume control for me, and the reason is there's no right or wrong. You can experiment with it. But for me, There's a thing that they talk about, like fingertip feel, with fighter pilots that obviously fly those super fast jets and whatnot. And they talk about the way that they in tune with everything that's happening is they have this fingertip feel, just in terms of like when they need to do stuff, because it's happening so fast. I'm guessing the F1 drivers will be the same thing, where they just have this fingertip feel in terms of like when they need to respond, because there's zero room for error. Now, thankfully on the guitars, we don't have that same kind of a consequence, right? What it would be to fly a jet or race an F1 car or whatever. But it does bring in some of that fingertip feel for me because of the tactile approach. My fingertips is controlling that volume control on my guitar over here, whereas I can do that with my foot as well. But for me personally, I lose that tactile touch that I would have with my fingers. Now, other times, it might be good for you to be able to, depending on what you're playing, to not have to do something else with your finger, and then obviously having the pedal is cool. So it depends. I do both, but I would say 80% of the time I'm doing with my volume control on the guitar, and then the other 20% of the time I'll go ahead and do that. So another question here is coming in that's saying, is it bad to overuse playing single note melodies? And the follow-up question is, how do you know if it's too much? Yeah, I think it's definitely possible to overuse it. It's kind of like cooking, right? Can you overuse salt or pepper or Tabasco or whatever, depending on your spices or chili or whatever you're going to use. So it is definitely possible to overuse something. So that is where you kind of have to let your intuition, not your intuition, that's maybe the wrong word. You just need to have your judgment as it relates to your musical feel, kind of drive that. So because sometimes if there's a big song and there's not another guitar in the band, sometimes we have it where it just kind of needs those big chords to happen, or other times there's a bit of a see, in that regard, I'm getting the strumming, the rhythmic feel, I'm getting the attack, and I'm getting melodic movement, and I'm getting the tone in terms of its driving there. So in that regard, sometimes the song requires you to do that. Then obviously it's good for the guitar to bring that vibe. So you have to ask yourself, when you're playing live, for example, if you're the only guitarist or you're the only instrument, well, in that regard, it's probably going to be better to play chords more. In that regard, than just playing single note melodies. But at other times, if the bass and the drums, if they're really driving the song from a rhythmic point of view, and the keyboards, they are taking care of the harmony. Remember, music is only three things. It's rhythm, harmony, and melody. So if the rhythm is well represented there, and the harmony is taken care of by the piano, then it's fine for you to play more melodically. So it all just depends on what the moment calls for. So like anything, it is possible to overuse, and as guitarists, we tend to love our licks and overplaying. So from a guitarist point of view, it's never a bad idea to practice playing with restraint. So there you go. That's how I would kind of answer that question. And then Woodley Jean is saying, how can I create this ambient sound on a Zoom G1X4? Of course, love the sound. You know what? We've done a video where we've broken down all of the elements that goes into creating this ambient tone. Now, of course, it's going to differ from device to device. But if you create this, and I'm guessing you're talking about this one. That sound, I probably only use that 5 to 10% of the time when playing in church. But sometimes there is a gentle moment, or the keyboard player is actually playing more of a piano thing without a pad, then I might come and act in as the pad. So it's a sound that you're not going to use that often, but in essence, the sound has gotten delay, plenty delay. What I'll do is I'll quickly just turn things off here. So now if you just listen to the sound now, then it's bone dry. So there's nothing else happening there. So the first thing that we're putting in there is compression, right? Now I've got this compression going in here. Without the compression, yeah, it doesn't squeeze the sound as much, but with the compression, it's very subtle, but when I add in that compression, it like squeezes the sound in like that. Then the second thing that I'm adding in here is like a quad chromatic delay. So and you can hear that if I hold on to it, there's a bit of a chromaticism happening on top of that. So that's my delay with the compression. Without delay, just compression, but with this delay added. Then I've got a second delay that I'm adding in here, which on the Kemper they just call that a legacy delay. So there's lots of repeats within that delay. And then finally I've gotten my reverb over here, which is a big reverb. And what the magic sauce in this delay, in the reverb, other than the fact that there's a lot of it and it's got a big decay time, it's like 12.6 seconds. So if I take that decay time off, the decay, imagine if you shout in a small room, the sound will just travel for a bit. But if you shout into a cave, the sound echoes. It takes a long time for that sound to decay, to kind of go away. So this, can you hear it stops my reverb? I'll turn off the delays. Listen to my reverb. You can hear it there, but it stops. So if I turn the decay back up a little bit, listen to it now. Can you hear? See, it's like I'm shouting in a bigger room. And now, even bigger. Check this. Now the sound travels longer. I'm just playing with the decay of the reverb. So now if I go to infinite, which you don't want to do, but check this out. That sound will continue forever until I turn it out. So that's too much. So you don't want to have it to be infinite. But in this instance, it's like 12.6 milliseconds, or is that? It's actually seconds, 12 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can still hear it. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So only after 12 seconds have I got this complete silence now, right? So that's the one piece of your tone. The other thing is a pre-delay. Remember when we used swells? We got rid of the attack. Now I've got a setting on my reverb that's called pre-delay, which is at 214 milliseconds. If I turn that all the way down, my pre-delay, listen to this now. Can you hear? You can actually hear the note I'm playing as I'm picking it. can hear the note. But a pre-delay, if I put that around 218 milliseconds now. Now listen to my note, I pick it. Listen to this again. It takes some time before that reverb comes in. So it's like a volume swell just for the reverb. Zero pre-delay. The reverb comes in immediately. It's almost too quick. With my pre-delay, you first get just a note, and then the reverb kind of gets mixed in there, right? And now I add the delays back in. So those are the elements: compression, two types of delays, and a reverb with a big decay time around 12 seconds, and then a pre-delay that delays the reverb coming into the sound for about 214 milliseconds. We did a detailed video on this exact ambient tone, and we'll happily do more of that. So that's kind of it for the tones element. So let's go ahead and check out a few more questions. So we've got Emmanuel Joseph asking, what types of amps do we have? Personally, I own 2 amps that maybe 4 amps that I never use. The one is a Blues Junior, Fender Blues Junior, great amp, but I haven't played on that one in many years. And then I have a Marshall JTM 30. Also haven't played on that one in a really long time. I've got a little Fender practice amp and a 1 or a 5 watt Black Star as well. Haven't used it in ages. So those are my own amps. I haven't used them in ages. I've got the Kemper, and within that I've got profiles. If I want a Dumble or a Marshall or a Fender or a specific Marshall, a Purple Plexi or a Fender Bassman or whatever. So I've got all the amps that I want in my in my Kemper profiler that I've bought profiles, and then obviously in our Helix we use all of the different types of amps as well. And then you might see some amps behind me there. There's like a Vox and a Fender Twin and another type of a Marshall and a Yamaha and whatnot. So that's a friend of mine's, Brandon Watson. So shout out to Brandon. We're looking after the amps for him. So but with the digital side of things, I really don't need it because it's just too much stuff to carry around for 3 songs on a Sunday or 4 songs. And also those amps are too loud for the church. A friend of mine who used to play with amps, he had to put his amps in a room way away from the stage because it's just too loud. So if in a perfect world, I'd play through 4x12 stacks and I'll have a lot of fun with that. But it's just, kind of don't need them anymore for me and for my use case, because I'm not a professional touring musician anymore. So the Kemper or the Helix, they kind of serve me in that regard. Do I have a preset amps or real amps? So yeah, I've got presets of most of all the amps that I could want, because I mean you can pick them up for a couple of bucks, for a preset. So over the years that I've owned my Kemper, I've invested in those, and then we also make patches for our Helix as well. So presets for me, definitely Emmanuel. And then unfortunately I don't read Portuguese, so if I had time I'd use Google Translate. But Paolo, thanks for your comment there. If anybody can translate that, please do. But great to have you with us. And then MTS Guitar 5150 says that might be nice for a soft opening. Yeah, sometimes you can really do well with an opening kind of vibe like that. So that's it for the tone, right? So we've spoken about the tone, and then we talked about technique and voicing. So let's make sure we cover the technique and the voicing as well. When I play these, I think it's always great to learn from other musicians. So piano players, they don't strike all the strings, or not strings, but they don't play all the notes at the same time. They obviously, pick different notes as they go. And on the guitar, we'll call that arpeggiation. So if I go to kind of a clean sound like this, and I play F, A minor, G, so you see what I'm doing is I'm picking the note. That's known as an arpeggio. Yes, you can also play an arpeggio like this. But when you play one chord, you just pick the notes separately, then that's known as an arpeggio. Now I use that similar approach, but I use hybrid picking. So hybrid picking is a technique that you definitely want to develop, and it's basically just your pick and your fingers that you can then use to kind of grab the strings. So hybrid picking is really cool for that because it allows you, even if I play this a little bit faster, if I play that's the one technique. And then if you are using a dirty sound with these open triads, we're going to look at the open triad shortly, but I can also strum these. So so you can strum those instead of power chords. If I just play that with power chords, that sounds cool, but check with open triads. Or just with the top two notes of that open triad. So what technique is important there? Well, the technique that's important there is string muting, where I can play all 6 strings, but you're only hearing 1, 2, 3 notes. You're not hearing the E string, you're not hearing the G string, and you're not hearing the high E. So that's a great way to be able to strum these open triads. So if you want to learn more about hybrid picking or the string muting, we've got videos on our YouTube channel that will run you through those elements as well. And then the final thing to look at will just be checking out these actual open voicings to actually see how do you physically play these open triads. Now, triads is something that is definitely super cool to use on the guitar. And when you play an open triad, it's just a slightly different way in which you can go ahead and play those voicings. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. And then, yep, you're right, with the long reverb tail, that's nice. You can actually, on some of the devices, if you wanted to play with your long reverb tail, you can have an expression pedal that controls that parameter. And in that case, if you want to clean it up, you just kind of step off that expression pedal and it'll clean up that parameter. So that's also a nice technique to use. But let's quickly look at these open triads. I just want to show you where they come from. If you know your triads, like let's just say this will be a D, and I'll zoom in for us here so you can see that nice and clearly. So if that's a D triad, the root position, and that's the first inversion, and maybe here we've got the second inversion. So as you can see, it's only the 3 notes. Now what I'm doing is, this is obviously if this one is an open triad, this is a closed triad. So from a theory point of view, all of these notes are contained within the same octave. So what I can actually do is I can take the middle note, this one here, and I can take it down an octave. So now instead of playing all 3 of these notes together, I'm just taking my middle note down an octave. And then I'm going to get... Can you see how that opens up the sound? Here's a closed triad. Here's an open triad. Big difference, right? If I play the root position that I had here earlier, take this middle note down an octave. So the other 2 notes will stay, but my middle note goes down an octave. So that's just the first inversion for my second open triad. And then this one over here, that's my triad 11, 10, 10. So take the middle note 10 down an octave, and then the other 2 notes remain as they were. And that's how you play an open triad. If I go back to that excessive reverb sound of ours, then listen to this. If I play the same thing with closed position triad, I play it again, closed triads. Now I'll play open triads. You can see the difference is quite drastic. With a bit of a dirty sound. We can have some fun with those voicings as well, which is the open triad. So today, what we've looked at is how to play these open triads. Those are great for ambient sounding chords. We've also looked at the techniques, hybrid picking and string muting, and then we've looked at some of the tonal elements that you want to have ready at your disposal for these kind of things. So what we can do is we can do a bit of a jam and kind of show you how you might use some of these open triads. Let's see, we'll do it in 2 different ways. I'll do like a 1-4 progression in the key of C, no, in the key of G, and then we can see what we might do with single note playing using swells, using 2 notes together with swells, some strumming, and then also using open triads with either hybrid picking or string muting, and perhaps even that ambient tone as well. So let's see what we can do from an ambient point of view. And if you have any questions, let us know. We've kind of done with the main teaching portion of today's session. Happy to answer a couple of questions and then do a little bit of a demo over here. So let's check this out. Here we go. So you can see me having a little bit of a more thinking of textures rather than actually playing a lot of things, more kind of texture thinking around there. So let's do one more. Let's this time go to the key of D and we'll do a 1, 4, 6, 5, which will mean 1, 4, 6, 5. If I just do those with my ambient tone, 1, 4, 6, 5, 1, 4, 6, 5. Right, so I'll go ahead and I'll jam over. Here we go.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
So a couple of ideas there that you might do. Let's do one more, and I'm going to play with a dirty sound using hybrid picking and these open triads. Same progression.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
All right, guys. So hopefully some useful things there for you today, voicings-wise, tone-wise, and technique-wise. Hopefully there's many different applications for this, and hopefully you found some great value over here. Really thank you for tuning in, for watching us, supporting us live. Really awesome being here with you guys today. So we got Donald Templeton saying, thanks again for all you do. I'm a lifetime member of your WGS Academy. Do you have any Helix patches available for the tones you are using today? Yeah, Donald, great to obviously have you as part of the Academy. Thank you for your support there. Today I played through the Kemper. So some of these sounds, in terms of the delay settings and the reverbs, yes, we'll have them available in the Helix patches. So if you've not yet gotten access to our full Helix patches, please just send us an email. As an Academy member, you get access to those. And for those of you curious about this, is we've got a coaching program with our Worship Guitar Skills Academy where we go live like this every Friday with our members. We have one that's US friendly time zone and another that's Australian friendly time zone with a bunch of all of our training and everything. So if you want to inquire about that, feel free to email us, support@worshipguitarskills.com. So Donald, what we are also going to be doing is we are going to be transferring a lot of these specific sounds like the ambient version as well as the dirty sounds that I use today to try and match those exactly on the Helix. The particular amp that I'm using, that particular sound is not quite available in the Helix. And so it's kind of just, I'm used to that. But yesterday we recorded a new version using the Helix and we made some tweaks to that and the sound was awesome. So going to be doing more of that, and then on some of the future streams I'll use the Helix more often because we know a lot of folks have either the Helix or the HX Stomp or the Pod Go, and it's easier to make the sounds there because you don't have to have the physical amp to profile. You can just go ahead and make the tones. So we'll make sure that those all go out to all of our members as well, and that we're going to be working on improving on our on our Worship Guitar Tones pack. So definitely we'll keep you guys posted on that. So Darren saying, thanks so much, Sean. I'm going to work on swells with triads and chord voicings this week. That's great to hear. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Darren. Same to you. These swells are a great way for you to just kind of ease into that sound, and because that attack is not actually present in the sound, it's a nice texture that you can add on Sundays. And the one thing that I didn't mention that someone else asked earlier, when it comes to, I forget, I think it was Larry that might have asked about the things, because sometimes if you are strumming more, then having that volume pedal is quite nice, but you can swell in fat chords like this, you know. Really great technique, one that I use often. And think of your guitar more like, creating sounds and the kind of textures that you can get out of the sound. That's one thing where keyboard players are really great in terms of how they tune their sounds and the oscillations and the modulations and all of that kind of stuff in their sounds, to think of it more like textures. And the great thing is, as guitarists, we can also think more from a texture point of view rather than just kind of strumming along the whole time or playing lead, because between strumming or between playing lead, there's this whole other world where you can go ahead and create some awesome textures as well. So thanks so much for tuning in today. It was great being with you guys. Hopefully the stream on Instagram was useful as well. It's our first time that we are streaming to Instagram as well. I know that we don't have the landscape view there, but if you want to see that, then just hop on over to YouTube. And then we're going to be ramping up our content as well. So you'd be pleased to know that instead of doing one video a week, we're going to start doing 2 videos a week on our YouTube channel, with the second video being more resource focused, either being able to jam with me over a backing track, making more tracks available, doing more song playthroughs. So we'll be ramping up on that regard as well. So with that said, that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Larry's saying he's trying to pull this off with older style pedals that he already owns. That's great to hear. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do some of these, see if we can do these tones with older pedals as well. We love Jet pedals as well. We've got some of their pedals here. So we'll be able to demo those, and then we'll also kind of see if we can take some, not any of the new generation things, like that's something that's maybe not a Strymon or any of these, or Jet pedals, or all those kind of things, for those of you who have the older style pedals. See if we can go ahead and cook up some cool tones with that more older school approach. But wonderful. Thanks for tuning in. Much love to you guys. Stay safe and keep practicing. And then we'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.